There are many references in historical records, mythology, and esoteric texts relating to the star Arcturus. It is the fourth brightest star in the sky. What can we learn by examining some of these ancient records? Will they reveal an ancient knowledge that seems to have been forgotten? Arcturus is the closest red giant star to us. It is the highest proper motion across the sky of any first magnitude star, but relatively little radial velocity towards us. This motion is in a direction of decreasing right ascension, and this is the east-west movement, similar to longitude, and even more in a decreasing declination, which is similar to latitude. We also know that red giants can undergo orders of magnitude brightening events. One important word that we must also introduce is the word culmination. This often gets mistranslated by religious and cultural scholars. It actually relates to stars. Imagine that you are watching a star night by night. It gets higher and higher until one night of the year it culminates. It reaches its highest point. Some translations seem to infer that a star stops rising, or even worse, stops altogether and somehow hovers over one location all night long. Any astronomer will tell you the best time to observe a star is when it culminates at midnight. One interesting point to note is that the midnight culmination of a star changes throughout the precessional cycle. If we examine mythology, we can find Arcturus as the bear god, and it is associated with the constellation of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, also known as the Bears. It currently does not sit anywhere near these, but obviously we know that it has a very high proper motion. So if we trace back its path to this region in the sky, what is interesting is that this area of the sky is in the north ecliptic pole, and it is part of the precessional axis. If we examine this motion, then the problem becomes that when Arcturus was part of this constellation was thousands upon thousands of years before what we would consider to be recorded records began. That is, of course, if the length of recorded history is indeed correct. Now we also have the esoteric knowledge from the likes of Edward Casey, who had the idea that the Sun somehow orbits Arcturus. And this idea still fits with the current proper motion of Arcturus. The obvious problem is that there is not enough mass to keep it in orbit. Now, we already know from Jim's concept that this may well be possible, as we believe that Arcturus sits on a different filament and ours is wrapped around it, giving a motion that mimics an orbit. Ancient Polynesian navigators knew Arcturus as the star of joy. Using Arcturus and other stars, the Polynesians would launch their double-hulled canoes from Tahiti. Travelling east and north, they eventually crossed the equator and reached the latitude at which Arcturus would appear directly overhead in the summer night sky. Knowing that they had arrived at the exact latitude of the island chain, they sailed due west on the trade winds to landfall. If they kept Arcturus directly overhead, they would land on the southeastern shores of the big island of Hawaii. Now, if this concept of following a star of joy west sounds very familiar, there is evidence to suggest that in the early days of Christianity, the birth of Christ was celebrated in spring. If we go back 2,000 years and correct for the high proper motion of Arcturus, you will find that Arcturus culminated directly overhead at latitude 31 degrees at the spring equinox. We find Cairo at 30 and Bethlehem at a latitude of 31.7. Now, this may be a rather fortuitous coincidence, but there are three important things that I would like you to consider from this story of Arcturus. The first thing is that the ancient stories of Arcturus's location indicate a knowledge that is much older than our recorded history. And this once again points to the fact that there have probably been many civilizations that have come and gone and have attempted to pass along knowledge. The Polynesian sailors indicate an intricate knowledge of the heavens, and that also supports this idea and the idea that their ability to travel across the globe has been seriously underestimated for many years. Knowing that Arcturus changes its midnight culmination location due to this high proper motion compared to other stars, it does seem odd that you would use this star to mark a point. But consider this. Firstly, ancient people may have used this star to easily navigate east to west. Secondly, by using this star and realizing that its motion changes so much that in fact looking at it not only gives you a destination, but will also give you an exact time frame. It is therefore important that we start to look at some of these stories in a different light. As always, be brave, be curious, the truth is waiting for us. Until next time.